Judges, here's our speech drop if you want. You can access it. Okay, who wants to flip? Oh, you have a coin. Look at her. She's prepared. Ooh.
I don't think my judge from my last round gave me back my quarter.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do we do?
Let's just straighten this piece down.
Did everyone get this?
Someone please flip this coin for us.
Make Michael do it.
Yeah. Thanks, Jackie.
Alright, nice.
I'll let you call it. I called the last one on my other round.
Okay, heads.
It is tails.
Cool. I'm gonna be negative.
Okay. Oops, wrong card. Big one. Delete. Judges, do you care if we use our phone to time? No? Cool. 6 minutes. I think so. It was supposed to start at 12:15, right?
Yeah.
Give a quick wave to the folks at home.
So does that mean we're good?
Yeah, I'm good with
Yes. Okay. Are you ready, Jasmine?
Yes.
All right. Judges, are you ready? Awesome. No obligations. Let's go ahead and get started. The DoD warns of growing cyber threats. Cyber Command Director believes the human capital approach is a losing strategy, but SQ has been moving in the wrong directions. Reprover Rogers 17. Cyber Command has something of a big data problem. The threats and level of malicious activity we face in cyberspace are real and growing. This threat comes from state and non-state actors who probe and scan US for vulnerabilities. China, Iran, and North Korea, especially Russia, are as state threats because if we're just going to take this largely human capital approach to doing business, it is a losing strategy. This leads us to our plan. The Department of Homeland Security will use Cyber Command to implement machine learning intrusion detection systems with a generative adversarial network for maritime transportation systems and provide training on how to operate and troubleshoot these systems. 3, machine learning is key to understanding, prevention, and protection from cyber attacks. Old methods are heavily dependent on cyber security professionals who find it difficult to keep up with growing cyber attacks. Networks are constantly under attack. Most networks protection devices provide logs and other traces of information regarding activities. Unfortunately, advanced attacks hide their footprints. In addition, malware makes detecting far more challenging for professionals. New alerting methods must utilize technology and not labor. It will be technology that supports the labor workforce to understand and react to cyber threats. Machine learning offers promising results for dealing with security events. For machine learning intrusion detection systems, applications are enhanced when operating under generative adversarial network, as this network teaches ML-IDS to operate under real-world attack scenarios, KD 2018. Researchers have developed a framework of generative adversarial networks called IDS-GAN. This framework is proposed to produce adversarial attacks which can fool and evade the intrusion detection algorithm or systems. IDS-GAN produces malicious and bad traffic to attack the intrusion detection systems, to build and mimic attacks and IDS in the real world. The detection rate to the artificially produced have also reached 0, which is very impressive. This improvement will concentrate on the increase of IDS robustness in our critical world. 5, machine learning has shown to have a 90% success rate and can reduce the amount of time it takes to secure a network, Friendly in Kennedy 17. The model did perform these functions with a very high accuracy, 90%. Security analyst time could be reduced by 78%. 2,000 hours a day could be reduced to 455. 6, and cyber threats will only increase in the future. We need to adopt better technology to handle the volume of impacts. Friendly Kennedy 17. The growing size of the attack surface prevents both a threat and an opportunity. The rapid adoption of connected devices equipped with the conventional security measures will render human security personnel incapable of defending the entire system. We will use ML to act as a force multiplier. This brings us to our advantage. Maritime transportation. Uniqueness. Maritime transportation is at high risk of cyber attacks. Martin and Hopcraft 18. First, there are many different classes of vessels, all operate in different environments. These vessels tend to have different computer systems built into them. In other words, many ships run outdated and unsupported operating systems prone to cyber attacks. Second, the users of these maritime computer systems are constantly in flux. Ship crews change at short notice, resulting in crew members are often using systems they're unfamiliar with, increasing the potential for cybersecurity incidents relating to human error. Further, the maintenance on onboard systems, including navigational ones, is often contracted to a variety of third parties. A ship's crew has little understanding of how often a ship's crew has little understanding of how the onboard systems interact with each other. A third complexity is the linkage between the onboard terrestrial systems and cybersecurity of the ship is also dependent on the cybersecurity of the land-based infrastructure. We can see this in 2017 when a cyber attack on the systems of AP Moller Musk resulted in cargo delays across their entire fleet. 2, this is our link story. Machine learning helps prevent critical infrastructure from cyber attacks. Ashby, Fisher, Janin, Smith 17. Machine learning can enable adversary detection, attribution, and attack prediction and improve response in a way that will reduce the asymmetric advantage of attackers. Additionally, when it comes to monitoring security threats, utilizing automation and machine learning technologies is vital. Machine learning can reduce the total number of cyber attacks and reduce the time to remediation following a cyber attack. That part is key. This is our internal link. Maritime transportation is key to global economy. White 15. Over 90% of international trade is based on sea transportation. So the safety of shipping vessels is critical to global economy. Yet the low levels of cybersecurity awareness and training in this industry is what makes it an easy target for hackers. This brings us to our impacts. Failure in maritime transportation would lead to societal collapse, economic times 12. Without shipping, half of the world would starve and half of the world would freeze. These impacts are huge. This is a major issue that needs to be addressed. You're going to be voting AF for these reasons. So one thing that I really want to point out is the fact that machine learning, you really want to look at the second card in my advantage, where machine learning helps protect critical infrastructure from cyber attacks. We want to look at the fact that machine learning can enable adversary detection, attribution, and action prediction, and improve response in a way that will reduce the asymmetric advantage. And that's it.
All right. 3 minutes of cross-X. Ready?
Yes.
Starting now. So how does the generative adversarial network operate within machine learning intrusion detection systems?
So basically it acts like as a virus. So it keeps attacking the intrusion detection system and until it gets in, and then once it gets in, the intrusion detection system learns like the ways that it did that,
Yeah.
so that it can protect itself from that same attack the next time.
Okay, that's how machine learning works, but how does generative adversarial network work?
Yeah,
How does
like,
that
so
make it better?
So because this like it is real, like it is how hackers actually hack into it. It mimics real life hacking styles, and teaches the machine learning those styles.
Okay, and so the GAN thing is like a virus?
It acts like a virus, yes.
Okay, but a friendly virus.
Yeah, it's a learning virus.
Okay, on your advantage, your link says that machine learning helps protect infrastructure from cyber attack. Is that with or without the GAN?
That is in general.
Okay. Is that card before or after GAN systems were in place?
What do you mean?
That card saying that it's a card saying that machine learning helps protect critical infrastructure from cyber attacks. Does that include the GAN systems, or is that just machine learning IDS systems on their own?
That is just machine learning systems on their own. If you want to look back up to the card in my solvency, where machine learning intrusion detection systems applications are enhanced when operated under generative adversarial networks, that's just saying that the GAN networks help increase the effectiveness of machine learning IDS systems.
Okay, and machine learning has shown 90% success rate. That is before or after GAN networks are in place?
That is before.
Okay. And where's your evidence that says GAN would improve that?
In the solvency card, the KD 2018 card.
Okay, KD 2018. There it is. Okay. So you were saying that we need to protect maritime trade?
Transportation? Yeah.
Maritime transportation. Does that, your impacts, is that on exports or imports?
That's general. That's a general level.
Okay.
There shouldn't be a distinguishing factor between exports and imports. Because maritime transportation is maritime transportation regardless.
Well, yeah, is it our boats going in that are at risk, or is it other countries sending their boats to us that are at risk?
All of it.
All of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's basically the end of our time. So I'm gonna start using prep now. All right, I'm stopping prep now. open my document. So I will be running 3 off-case arguments, and I will get back on case if I can. Are the judges ready?
Wait, I have a question. 3. You only uploaded 2 off-case arguments. Oh, never mind. Just
yeah.
me. Never mind. Pick them up.
Okay. Judges ready? Opponent ready? Kirby is ready. 7 minutes starting now. T, increase actions. Interpretation. The 1AC must increase actions done by Cybercom that are part of existing operational roles. Increase must be a part of something that already exists. Buckley 6. The term increase should be constructed to apply the increase of an already existing policy. The Cyber Command is involved in defensive cyberspace operations. Cyber Command is in charge of protecting DoD networks. Cyber Command 18. Cybercoms defend the nation by identifying adversary activity, blocking attack and maneuvering to defeat them, defending the DoD information networks, protecting priority missions, and preparing Cyberforce for combat. Provide analytic and support. On violations, the app does not increase, they simply create a new action. The app is extra topical, they are trying to gain advantages from other no resolutional mandates. My Prager 2002 card says it best. Extra topicality concentrates on one advantage and argues the plan goes too far beyond the resolution. Effect topical, they only gain topicality by passing of the plan because it creates an operation that can now be used as a justification for an increased action. On standards, predictability, the resolution is the only stable indicator of what the negative should expect before the run begins. Keeping an app case resolutional is vital. There are already so many types of apps that would make this topic unpredictable. On ground, allowing the app to claim off-topic impacts puts the negatives at a severe disadvantage. It allows the app to a nearly infinite variety of impacts that it cannot possibly be expected to research. Multiple actions take away from dead ground. This leaves for the negative team at a disadvantage. You can vote them down on competitive equity. On limits, they need good limits to make sure that we have an educational debate. That only happens by limiting debate to actions of increasing, not creating. On voters, the rules of NFALD and fairness in education. Moving on to an overstretched DA. Uniqueness, right now Cyber Command is focused on protecting its own infrastructure. The U.S. cannot afford inaction, Promello 18. The Department of Defense said it would focus on cyber efforts on China and Russia. The United States cannot afford inaction. China and Russia are conducting persistent campaigns in cybersecurity that pose long-term effects. China is eroding U.S. abilities to overmatch opponents. Russia is using cyber-enabled information operations to influence U.S. population and challenge democratic processes. The DoD strategy comes on the heels of a major movement in cyberspace from the department. On Link, Cyber Command has limited resources, so this plan forces a trade-off. On Johnson 18. Rogers cautioning lawmakers against stretching Cyber Command's resources too thin. Where you ask why doesn't Cyber Command do this? The challenge for us is about prioritization with resources. Internal Link, risk of serious attack on U.S. critical infrastructure is a growing threat. Land 18. The U.S. intelligence chief warned that their threat was growing for a devastating cyber attack on U.S. critical infrastructure. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea are launching daily cyber attacks on computer networks, government agencies, and U.S. corporations. Impact, Russian hackers can shut down multiple U.S. power plants and disrupt the power grid. Ralston 18. Russian hackers attempt to infiltrate sectors of American infrastructure, including energy and nuclear, water. Russian actors gained the ability to completely shut down power plants and other critical infrastructures in the U.S. It is obviously increasing in frequency. The DHS found a group that had broken into the core operation systems of energy companies in the U.S. and Europe. Impact, attacks on the power grid lead to unimaginable suffering and societal collapse. Bennett 16. Stores are closed, cell services failing, hospitals are on generators, rapidly running out of fuel, garbage is rotting in the streets, clean water is scarce, and escape there is none. This is the threat of an attack on the nation's power grid. In order to restore civilized society, the power has to be back on. The most damaging kind of attack would be carefully coordinated to strike multiple power stations. While some areas could recover, others would be without power for weeks. Militarization, okay. The affirmative uses DoD escalation militarized cyber discourse, allowing for militarization to become normalized. Trobish 14. The debate about cybersecurity has been militarized, which is dominated by a terminology of warfare. Constant warning of cyber threat dangers while struggling the whole of nation approach creates a dangerous casualty. The Department of Defense is likely not the proper entity to lead the civil cybersecurity efforts. The app's use of cyber hype is further militarization. This is seen in the justification of constructional legality in their actions. Torch 14. The over-militarization of cybersecurity due to poorly defined terminology and argumented by the negative aspects of cyber hype violates the constitutional separation between the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security. Predetermining cyber threats creates a war environment. Failing to draw a distinction between protection and defense generates militarization. Torbish 14. Determining cyber threats that leads to a discussion about the perception of the war in the United States, which creates many problems to encapsulate the real challenge. The first issue is the misinterpreted analogy of overwhelming cyber threats using metaphor of war. The second issue is the inappropriate mixing of political politico-military terms, failing to distinguish between protection and defense at the political strategic level. This combination of thinking brings the military outside the legal framework of a democratic nation. And the 1AC attempts to securitize our cyberspace for unrealistic threats creates a cyber-industrial complex that motivates irrational policies of fear. This creates an environment of competition where nations are constantly at war. We need to reject this methodology and reject the academia used to further the propaganda. Borello and Manus 15. The most insidious prospect is that the speculators will seize on the fear responses that exist in society and will construct a cyber-industrial complex. This complex will both warn of the dire threats in cyberspace and unleash the worst cyber incidents that might make the fears a reality, thus creating self-inflicted, self-fulfilling prophecy. To break down the prospect, we must fully understand the nature of cyber fear. The cyber conflict is predicted on the need to perceive threats in an insecure world, the idea that we live in an anarchic world, and thus are always doomed to competition and conflict. The cyber world is no different. The growing perceptions of fear among governments and policymakers only enables the cyber threats. And in the context, we buy into the myth that our enemies are real and even more dangerous if they operate with a fog of cyberspace. The affirmative begins with rejection of the fear-based discourse embedded in the affirmative. The critique is a pedagogical task to break down fear-based cyber hype in favor of truthful data based on rational reasoning. The rejection is needed to reorient ourselves in a way of failed logic, the perpetual excuses to further militarize, Manus 15. We find that the danger inherent in the cyber system could be countered by the general restraint that might limit worst abuses in the human condition by countering an unwarranted construct of fear of reality, data, and evidence. We hope to move beyond the simple pessimistic construction of how digital interactions take place and go further to describe the security context of international cyber politics. Cut card there and go on case. On their advantages, the link to the impacts don't operate together. There's no place in here that says that if we don't protect the maritime if we don't protect maritime, that the impacts will happen. And the failure in maritime economic times 2012 card only says that without shipping, half the world would starve and the other half would freeze. They don't indicate how that happens. They do not, their impacts are not weighed in their favor. And I'm out of time.
Process. Okay, we can start. Okay, it's going from 0 to 100, increasing. It's going from 0 to 100, increasing.
No.
It's not.
No.
Okay. Overstretched DA. What's the basics of this? How am I going to be overstretching Cyber Command?
So because Cyber Command is focused on the onslaught of attacks from Russia, China, Iran, multiple different actors, we are so focused on protecting our critical infrastructure from those that if we implement your plan, we are allocating resources that from protecting our other critical infrastructures into protecting this one specific thing, which makes us weaker on the other fronts, which triggers the impacts.
Okay. Let's pay attention closely to what you just said there. We're focused on protecting our critical infrastructure, correct?
Yes, equally.
Okay. Do you know what transportation is part of? Critical infrastructure. Thanks. Next point is cyber militarize. Is it just? Oh, it's just militarization. Okay. So what are you calling for here?
Your plan militarizes the cyber realm by having the DoD get involved.
So the DoD isn't already involved in the cyber realm?
No, it is. Your plan just risks militarization.
How?
Because your plan is implementing this kind of it is putting the military in places where it doesn't necessarily need to be.
So the military protecting our critical infrastructure is a place that it doesn't need to be.
No, it does. Your plan just
Okay.
does it too much.
Oh, okay. So any extra action by Cyber Command or the DoD would be risking cyber militarization or militarization in general.
I don't know. Your question was very unclear.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a better way to word that. I don't think I have one. 15 seconds. So we're just gonna you're just calling for a rejection, right? You don't have an actual alternative.
Yes.
Cool. That is the end of Cross X. I will start running prep. I'm stopping prep, uploading my document. There we go. It should be uploaded. Does everybody have access to it?
I'm opening it now. As soon as the computer loads it. Yep, it's open.
Cool. Six months, yeah. Okay. I'm ready. You ready?
Yep.
Judges, are you all ready? Yes. All right. Let's go ahead and start. All right. So first off, with the T, we meet their interp. If you want to go ahead and look at their second card, it specifically says that. Oh, that's right here. Second card. Cyber Command defends the nation by identifying adversary activity. This is literally Cyber Command defending a part of critical infrastructure, which is a part of our nation, by identifying adversary activity. They're also defending the DoD network through this plan as well. But if you don't buy our meat, that's totally fine. Go ahead and look to, they have a no link on their topic. It's like a bad definition. They use an outdated form. Their definition speaks to their interpretation of increase in the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Their Supreme Court case states, SCOTUS 2017, the Fair Credit Reporting Act requires notice of a consumer subjected to adverse action based on a credit report. Adversary action is denial of an increase of any assurance. The Supreme Court didn't buy their definition, neither should you, Judge. Increase can refer to creation. The Supreme Court says it again. This is blah, blah, blah. Increase to reach a first-time rate. The government gives examples of a gas station owner who charges more of the posted price to the gas consumer he doesn't like. It makes sense to say that the owner increases the price even if the driver never even pulled into that gas station before. We therefore hold that increase speaks to disadvantageous rate even with no prior dealing. The term reaches initial rates for new applications. All right, counter-interp 1. Increase includes creation. If I have 0 bananas and then it gives me banana, guess what? I increase the amount of bananas I have in my hand. Increase means to become greater and size, amount, or number in intensity. On violations, I meet the counter interpretation. I feel like I also meet their interpretation too. So regardless of where you're going to vote, you're not voting on T today. For counter standards, predictability, my interpretation is more predictable because it aligns with how the Supreme Court actually ruled in negative cases, not an earlier appellate court. Ground, my definition provides more ground because it's not tied to specifically to the programs which already exist, thus allowing the negative more arguments. For example, they can run disadvantages related to staffing, which they kind of did. Real world, my definition is what it actually was used in the Supreme Court case that they cited, and then burden of proof. The burden of proof is vital to checking forces of opposition, which will use the fullness of justification to screw people over. All right, so let's jump to their disadvantage 1, which was overstretch, if I'm correct. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so easy answer for their overstretch disadvantage. Cyber Command and the DoD are doing good. Like, President Trump likes the DoD. He likes Cyber Command. He just, in 2019, had a budget proposal to increase the amount of money that they got to $686 billion for the Department of Defense. That's the highest it's been since 2010 when we were in war with Afghanistan and Iraq, or fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq. And then Congress, shortly after a couple testimonies, Congress lifted the caps and to agree to provide $1.4 trillion in defense spending over fiscal 2018 and 2019 years. So Cyber Command does not have limited resources. They pretty much have unlimited resources. This is a huge increase in the amount of money that they get. This is a critical no-link argument for their disadvantage. So just go ahead and take out that disadvantage. Where am I at? That's a critical no link. And then we're gonna lead down to like, I don't know. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the militarization. Okay. So there's no alt for this. Their alt is they're calling for rejection. You shouldn't be voting on a K that doesn't have an alt. That's not fair to the affirmative because then the negative isn't solving for anything either. They're just simply asking for a rejection. I felt like this was more of a time suck. Honestly, I feel like you should vote them down for running this K, but we can talk about it anyways. So this is not, so basically what this militarization K does is any topical plan under this resolution is going to fall into some issues with this militarization K. It's honestly bogus and blown out of proportion because the AF is not used. We're using the Department of Homeland Security and using Cyber Command to implement machine learning intrusion detection systems to build up our defensive networks against cyber attacks from state and non-state actors to protect maritime transportation because it is such a risk. This is something that needs to be addressed and issued. I feel like we don't even like, yeah. there's no fear based in this. Like, this is an actual risk. This isn't something that we're blowing out of proportion. Like, this is something that can happen and will happen if we do not pass the plan. This is something that needs to be addressed and solved for today. Now we're going to jump down to my advantage. For only argument, you can go ahead and drag across my uniqueness point saying that marine transportation is at risk. Go ahead and drag that across for me. We're extending that. Second, she tried a no link saying that not protecting maritime transportation doesn't lead directly to the impacts. That's not true. You can see this in the cards, how this would directly lead. Because
You can stop talking now.
Okay.
I'm going to start my 2 minutes of prep. Alright, that's the end of my time. Okay, I'm starting my 6 minutes. Well, my judges are ready, I assume. My opponent is ready.
What's the order?
We're gonna go same order: topicality, dissed, critique on case. 6 minutes starting now. So on T, overall, he didn't touch on the limits that I provided on my T argument, which are my limits is that we need good limits to make sure that we have an educational debate. He did not address this, so you can extend that argument over. He didn't address the fact that he was extra topical or affects T. We can only protect maritime trade once his plan goes into effect. We can't do anything until we are attacked and we are hacked. We cannot do his plan until something else happens first. So my affects T go over and my extra topical argument goes over. Moving on to the disadvantage, his own solvency card 5 and my internal link card says that attacks are on the rise. We will use those new budgets and new resources to increase the actions we are already taking to protect the current critical infrastructure, not do his new plan. It is a new plan that we aren't doing, and we would take the steps necessary to increase the current actions being taken to protect our critical infrastructure. By doing his plan, we would take resources away from all the other critical infrastructure sectors, and that would limit the amount that they would get, and that would trigger my impact cards of Russian hackers hacking our power plants and disrupting the power grid, which would lead to societal collapse. and I still have access to those impacts because his Solvency 5 card and my internal links say that. So I still get the access to these impacts. And you should far outweigh these impacts because we are saying that societal collapse will happen in the United States if we don't protect our power grid. He's just saying, well, yeah, some people will starve somewhere, maybe. He doesn't specify on his impact cards where that's happening. There's his internal link, and impacts don't flow together at all. It doesn't make any sense, and he doesn't say how by maritime trade failing that would cause societal collapse. It doesn't say anywhere in the card. The card is 5 words long, maybe. So you should far outweigh the impacts of my disadvantage. Moving on to K. He says that this is a real risk that needs to be solved for. Yeah, okay. But you're not solving for anything. You are creating a new action that would trigger the effects of the dissat that I explained. And the militarization of this sector would create a cascading effect of terrible things. And the critique is saying that the DoD would be doing this and it would militarize the sector that he specifies because there is so much fear and that isn't real. There is no real danger of the maritime being hacked. There's no substance to what he's saying. It all has to do with the military wanting to increase its budget, but to increase its actions to eventually go into an offensive kind of attack. And that's what my critique is saying. So, overall, my disadvantage far outweighs the impacts of his advantage because I specifically say how his plan is stretching it too thin, how we are at risk right now of cyber threats from Russian actors on our power grids, and that American citizens will go without food, they will go without water, hospitals will shut down, we won't have anything that relates to power available to us if we do his plan, if we redo the resources to do his plan. Right now, the budget might have been increased and it might have happened, but those resources would go to increasing actions already in place, not creating his new plan, as I stated before. So overall, because of his plan and because of the impacts not really convincing anyone that it's going to happen, that these bad things will happen, that these things are actually bad, I have explained to you why my disadvantage impacts are bad and why those outweigh his. So you should be voting on the disadvantage. I pointed out that his advantage, his link and internal link and impact cards don't operate together, so he doesn't get access to that at all. I've pointed out that his solvency card and my link card on DA on my disadvantage operate together, so he himself is saying that if the new budget goes into effect and we have more resources, because of the increase of military, the increase of cyber attacks, that would make it more plausible for the resources to go towards current operations and not affect his new plan. Thank you.
Okay, I will take the rest of my prep then. prep time is done. I'm ready for my last 3-minute speech. Are you ready? Judges, are you ready? Awesome. Roadmap real quick. It's mostly going to be an overview, so I'm going to jump around. I'll try to like signpost as best as I can. I'm first going to address the T though. I'm going to kind of stay off case in order and then jump back on case in order, if that helps out. But I will do my best to signpost. My mind's kind of going in reverse. All right. 3 minutes starting now. All right, judges today, you're definitely going to be voting affirmative. First, this T is not holding through. Not only do I meet their interpretation, which is first the appellate court's definition of the term, I also meet my interpretation, if you prefer mine, which you should, because that is actually how it was defined according to the Supreme Court of the United States. We're going to hold the Supreme Court's of the United States definition over an appellate court's definition. She wanted to say that she brought through the violations because I didn't address it, but that's because I said I don't make any violations here because I meet not only their definition, because we're protecting critical infrastructure, which is what Cyber Command is tasked to do. But yeah, and then they brought through like standards limits. I had answers for all the standards because I had counter standards. So you want to go ahead and drag my counter standards across. But regardless, we're not voting on T today because T was answered sufficiently. Overstretched DA. So she was saying, oh, we're going to take resources away from other sectors. If you want to look at the card that I put up, it says specifically how much was requested by the DoD. It was $686 billion. They got awarded more than what they requested. Therefore, Congress is willing to give them more money if they're going to use it. So they are not limited to the resources that they get in a fiscal year. They literally had testimonies and Congress gave them an extra, probably like $40 billion, which that's a lot of money. $40 billion, a lot of people can do a lot with that. That is way more than, yeah. So the whole fact that we're taking away resources from other sectors, no, like Congress is willing to give more money. It shows in this carded evidence. So you're going to prefer my carded sources over this. And also she wants to claim like suffering, like if you look at her overstretched DA down at the bottom, she just says like suffering. People are going to suffer. What suffer? She's comparing this disadvantage to my advantage for maritime transportation, saying they both cause societal collapse. I claim to solve for deaths and people starving and freezing. She claims for suffering. What suffering? Do you get a splinter and suffer? We don't know what suffering it is, so we can just assume it's splinters. Militarization K, she really made a critical no rink. She said there's no real threat. Military wants to amp up this so that they have this. Okay, you can have it one or both ways. Like you can't have it or one or the other way. You can't have it both. You're gonna cut out this militarization K because she didn't even really talk about it in her last speech. She focused on her disadvantage herself. My advantages flow through. You're gonna weigh the impacts of the preventing millions of deaths through starvation and freezing just because of how bad and nasty that is, and the fact that I have clear carded evidence. And I'm done.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sound
No,
like
you're
mean.
good. You're good.